Well, hello and good morning. My name is Dione, and welcome to another rendition of Spilling Tea with D. Now, we have just a full disclosure, we had a few technical difficulties before, so I was hoping that we'd be able to see our entire panel at the same time in a gallery view. So if you're only seeing one face at a time, which is wonderful, it's great, but I would prefer that we see the whole group. But the main thing is that we do get the message across and that we get our across. So this episode, we're talking about being Black in the fitness industry, part two. The last time we talked a little bit more about our individual experiences as fitness professionals and the thing that we kind of experience and we're able to share from our various different perspectives. But now I want to dig in a little bit talking about the business side in terms of like leadership and also talking about the perspective of intersectionality, which we'll touch on a little bit. And we'll also just talk about just our experiences in that level as well. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce the panel. So we have Renee Mark. Renee, I'll get you to say hello so people can see you.
Hello.
So Renee Mark, she is a swim instructor, the lead instructor for Silk Dance Party, and also a strong nation instructor based in Toronto, Ontario. And we also have Stephen Sinan. Say hi, Steve.
Hello, everybody.
So Steve Mitten is a corporate specialist, fitness instructor specialist, and the Good Life Instructor of the Year based in Toronto as well. And we have Ms. Connie Martin.
Hi.
Hello, Connie. Connie Martin is a fitness instructor, retired school teacher, athletic coach, personal trainer, international fitness preventer, the SCW or an SCW Fitness Idol winner, and co-owner of the Move Fitness and Dance Education Convention, which is a Black-owned fitness convention, and she is based out of Aurora, Illinois. So welcome, everybody.
Thank
so we're going to get started and get into it. All right, let's get into spill the tea. So as I mentioned, we talked about our individual experiences last time of being Black in the fitness industry from the perspective of being an employee or a contractor. And we touched a little bit about our experiences with management and our clients. While we continue to share our stories, I think it's important to expand our discussion a little bit more and just talk about representation in leadership and how we kind of feel about that, about intersectionality, about a bit of body image as well, and also to discuss progress, like what has happened in the last 7 months since the industry has kind of become a little bit more aware and more awakened from social injustice that we're seeing on a louder or more profound scale, I should say, and kind of what our thoughts are of where we've come so far this past year and perhaps what may happen in the future. So let's get into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about representation. Now, I was doing some research and I found that the top fitness companies or gyms in Canada, 7 out of 8 are founded and owned by white people. And just to name these top clubs, we have Anytime Fitness, Gold's Gym, Good Life Fitness, LA Fitness, Planet Fitness, Snap Fitness, Crunch Fitness, and 24-Hour Fitness. And only one out of all of those gyms is owned by somebody that's not white. We have, which is it's a Asian. And most of those gyms have white executive teams, white board of directors, and a lot of the management, or most of the management, is white. So I just kind of want to get into talking about leadership and what experiences that we've had in terms of the graphics of leadership in the fitness industry, and if we've been able to see much presentation from the BIPOC community. I'll open up the panel for discussion in that area.
I mean, I can go first if you'd like. In my many years of experience in the fitness industry, I have not had any BIPOC managers or I had mentors, colleagues have been mentors, but in terms of levels of management in a company, in a bigger or smaller company, I haven't had that experience. I think they're trying to rectify it somehow. These companies are trying to create some visibility within management. Sometimes it seems some companies are going with hiring firms or organizations that'll help them increase their BIPOC representation in their companies. I guess what's a little bit problematic with that is that the senior level of management, who in most cases are white are making that decision. And I guess part of the conversation is how do you get a person of a color or BIPOC individual on that same level to help incorporate in making those decisions. So it's not only hiring someone to help you become better in your understanding, but how do they get into that level of leadership? That's the other level of the puzzle that needs to get figured out for some companies, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And just to clarify for anyone that might be unfamiliar with the term BIPOC, it stands for Indigenous People of Color. Yeah, anybody else want to add that?
I want to add something. I didn't hear you mention two major big box gyms, Lifetime Fitness, which is national across the country in the United States, and also Export Fitness, which has over 200 locations in the United States. Those two are very big gyms in the United States. And I have worked for Export for 14 years and Lifetime for 5 years. Speaking of my experience, and before that, I worked just short term at a couple of private facilities and taught fitness classes in my church at the start. But speaking of Export that I know of as of back 14 years ago, it's of course owned by all white, and their administrative staff has been all white. We have had national presidents. I've been through 5 national presidents in the time that I've been there. And I've been through 6 regional managers, and each regional manager is in charge of 10 different gyms. It used to be 8, now it's 10, and then they let my recent regional go, and then they gave each one give more and more gyms to be responsible for the instructors. Sometimes they're in charge of all the group fitness instructors and all the group fitness programming that goes on at the gym. So you never hardly see your regional manager, but you can reach them, easily. Anyway, what I've noticed back 14 years ago, and that seemed like eons ago, really, but there was all white staff and very few Black instructors. So I made a point about that I would say after teaching there about maybe 2-3 years, looking around, I was the only Black that was hired at the time in that gym because I opened a brand new facility at the location. I was hired to open the gym, auditioned, and they had to hire me because there was nobody else that they hired that was teaching Zumba 14 years ago. So I was hired to teach Zumba because that was like way back in 2007. I think I got certified in 2006. Because it started in 2004, right? Something like that. So I was hired to teach Zumba, and I was hired to teach Aqua. And then later on cardio sculpt classes. But the point I was going to make is that now, with the progression of things that are going on to address systemic racism, they hired a Black national president. Her name is Victoria Ashley Tolbert. She is a Black national president over group fitness for all Export gyms across the country. And there's 2 that I know of in my region out of Chicago, because I'm not in Chicago, but I'm a suburb area. But there's 2 regionals that I know of that are African American that are working for Export, and up until the shutdown, I'm sure. But anyway, now that we're reopened there, so that was something that I spoke to the last president, 2 presidents ago. I mentioned it to her. Why aren't there any African American regional managers? Why aren't there as many African American instructors? What is there seems like there needs to be more inclusion, and what are we going to do about it? And I just put it like that. What are you going to do about it? And then what are we going to do about it? Right? And yeah. I'm just an instructor. I wasn't even a presenter at that time. So I put that question to them. They went back, and I said, I want you to go back when the next time you have your meeting, your board meeting, and I want you to ask them that question. Right? 3 weeks later, another Black instructor was hired. Really? So it's like when you bring it to their attention, then they may act on it more than if you never mentioned it at all. And that was
And then
something
how about
that
yourself? Have you?
just taught me, Connie, open your mouth.
I never mentioned it, but so I worked for 2 different places, but for the big box gym that I worked for that has multiple locations across country. In all my time, they've never had anybody in leadership or in director positions that's been a person of color. And they've actually gone on the record this year and stated that they don't have anybody that meets that criteria. But I will say last year, for the very first time, I did get a location manager. So not a Group X manager, not a regional, but the specific one location manager who was actually a Black man. And that was the very first time that I ever encountered it. So it was a bit of a shock, but a pleasant one, not like negative, it was pleasant. I was quite surprised. It's just, I guess the way the organization's set up, I don't really have much face time. Nobody has much face time. So it's kind of like putting someone in a role that doesn't really impact you in any way. So having them there in a manager role where you only talk to the person once a month by email, is that still considered management?
Well, that's true. It's a good point. How I see it as well is that it's about opportunities, right? And when you think about the fact that all of us are basically saying the similar thing, that we have rarely seen people of color in management roles. Myself, I have been in the industry for 20 years, and I have had 2.5 people in a supervisory position, less than half. For a smaller gym, I had a group exit coordinator who was Black, another as well. And then I had someone that was actually just covering him mat leave, so it was half. So when she came back, the white woman, she took over her role. So the fact that think of all of our experience, I've had 20 years experience, Connie, you've had 35 years experience in fitness, I believe. Oh, correct. Steve, how many years?
I just want to add one more thing. I think the organizations that are trying to have bring on they're basically on a consultant basis. I find a lot of these organizations are finding other community programs work with that'll teach them how to become more inclusive and diverse and equitable. However, I think they could have taken a step further if fiscally, if they can find the money to pay those consultants. Would it not be beneficial for these companies, these gyms, to make that a position within the company at that level? Maybe have a VP of diversity, inclusion, equity, or whatever the fancy title you want to give it. But wouldn't it be more value when you actually be doing the thing you're trying to do? You're getting someone to teach you how to become more representative, or have a bigger representation. But if you just put someone in a position that's equal to you, one of your cohorts that has the same amount of salary, let's say, wouldn't that be a better step? So I think sometimes people are learning, but I think there's a little bit of a misstep. If you have the money for this, can't you have the money for this? And then maybe learn how to find that executive. There's a lot of executive search engines that specifically deal now, especially as of late, with BIPOC individuals, how to find BIPOC executive staff. So that would be an avenue, I think, for companies to reach out to make it have some permanency in their companies. And the optics for their employees, they've actually hired one. For me, I'd speak personally, be like, oh, they hired one of us in a position rather than just contracted me out, and when they're done with me and they've learned everything, I'm no longer needed. I'm sure that's not their intent, but that's what it kind of can feel like. I think I went on a tangent there. I'm not sure if I went on the tangent. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, that's fine. Basically, the reason I think it's so important for us to talk about the fact that it's not just about putting us in roles, the lowest paying jobs. Like we all know, as fitness professionals, as group coordinators or groups, fitness instructors, the pay often is very limited. It's very low and limited. There isn't necessarily a progression in terms of where that will take you. Whereas for us to be represented throughout the entire company, from leadership all the way throughout various different roles. And when we don't have those opportunities, and that limits our ability to generate wealth, to generate a proper income that we can have more opportunities. So it's important that we have discussions and let them know, it's not acceptable that if you're in a city or what have you that's very diverse, and yet your diversity is not shown throughout your entire company, then there's an issue. So I'm glad we're able to demonstrate, hey, we all probably collectively, probably 100 years experience in the fitness industry, but why is it that? Why is that we're not seeing representation in leadership, not just in the Grex instructor? So let's kind of go on to our own individual leadership roles. So maybe we can share a little bit about what you have done to take on leadership roles in either a project or a company that you may have started, or in that situation, and what obstacles or challenges you may have come across that you may notice may not necessarily be the same for our white campuses. Anybody will jump in there.
Well, I've got 3 different situations that would answer that call as to how I personally stepped into leadership positions. The first, I would say, is in instructing, being in a leadership position at my gym at Lifetime. It's more, I'm an instructor at the gym. However, my presence, I'll say, my presence there in the past 4 years, and my interaction with the members and having the largest aqua classes probably in the history of the 20-year history of that particular gym. People look up to me, the members love me and I love them dearly. And from average class sizes they had before that were maybe 12, 8, 12, maybe 15. My classes are 35, 30 to 35, 53 on outdoor pool. So that puts me in people look up to you when you are successful in that type of way. And I actually was awarded a star presenter, or star instructor award at Lifetime because of that. And that was the first year I was there. That they did the Star Awards instructor. So that was one way. And since then, things that happened in the gym, even the first year, second year, incidents and things that happen in the gym, they come to me, go ask Anish, and I'm just saying that because we had three aqua instructors, okay, and I was one of 3 aqua instructors. There used to be 4, and then she left, so that was 3 aqua instructors, and I was given 5. We classes 5 days a week, and I was given 3 aqua classes, and one instructor was given 1, and the other one was given 1. So I had the majority of the aqua classes, probably due to the level of instruction that I've grown to, which is a blessing. Thanks to my mentor, can't say nicely that, because of my mentor, Lawrence Pistantini, changing my life and changing the way that I instruct and teach. That put me in a leadership kind of position, not necessarily leadership role as like a lead instructor, but a leader. People looked up to me. People came to me to ask questions because of that. Okay. Secondly, the leadership came as being selected because I won Fitness Idol contest, which is a big award in the United States with SCW Fitness Education. They travel from state to state. They go to 8 different states in 1 year and do not virtually, but physical conventions. So I've been in airplanes flying to 8 different states at one time. 6 is the most I've been on in 1 year, but 6 conventions every year. So being in that position as a presenter, you are considered as one of the best in your area to be selected as a presenter. So there would be 80 some presenters presenting in California, 78 presenters chosen to present in Florida, Dallas, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Boston, DC, New York. So that being in that fitness role, business, kind of like a leadership position, people look up to me, email me, call me, ask me all kinds of questions about how they can even get themselves to that level of, and I tell my kids, I'm like, Mom, you know, you're doing so much. How do you maintain, you know, that level of leadership? And when people are asking you all these kind of questions, not only from other fitness instructors who would like to be a presenter, or other people who want to get into the fitness industry, and look up to me in the leadership role because I'm at the top of the fitness industry, and my kids are like, Mom, you're in the Olympics of fitness. So, you know, being a presenter is like you're in the Olympics, you know, in your career, in your sport. So I said, okay, I think of it like that. And the third way I've been in a leadership position is to be honored to be on a team of for other people to start a fitness convention. And that's a leadership role that I have as director of education, where I actually am the one who hires the presenters to come and present for MOVE conventions. So people look at me in that different role. It's a different role in that, as being someone who is a leader in looking at talent. And being able to filter through talent in many different aspects, not just in performance, but also in, of course, presenting yourself and how you put yourself out there to the public, and how you are representing our company. When you present your PowerPoint presentations, your interaction with the members that come to your sessions in the Zoom room, and delivering your information and your physical workout. So that's a different situation. So I just want to share that I enjoy all three of those different leadership roles, but they are challenging. But I love it. I accept it, and I accept the challenge.
Which is awesome, and that's especially with the MOVE convention. I just want to add an additional question on that, Bonnie, is that have you noticed any of the any challenges that's presented to you, particularly as a Black woman? Have you noticed anything that has come up made you go, I don't know if that's normal. Something, you know what I'm saying. There's something that feels off here.
Yeah, so part of my job, of course, is job hunting. So I'm looking for, position to I say, what do you say, when you are recruiting? So when I'm in the recruiting mode, as well as the accepting applications mode. So when I'm in the recruiting mode, it becomes difficult because people who know me from presenting for SDW, there's a lot of connection there, but I accept them when they come to me. Right. And when I also try to, being African American, I try to look for talent of all colors, all races, and especially Blacks. So we're accepting, of course, we want the Black and brown presenters who have in the past been looked over or not given the opportunity to show their talents or showcase their talents because of the color of their skin. And it's systemic racism that we see that some white people don't realize is systemic racism. They don't realize it because it's part of their normal actions, their normal way of thoughts, their normal gravitating toward their white friends, if you will, that they want to continue to keep coming to represent their company, and not wanting to take that leap of faith on people of color to come and do just as good a job, if not sometimes better, and be more educated if they are, and they have to be educated. That's one thing we can make in conversation. You have to be educated to get to this level, to get to that respect that will be granted to you in the fitness industry. So yes, I've been turned down by major companies, major fitness companies, who I'm trying to get them to come and sponsor, to come to, participate in a sponsorship package with us and present with us with MOVE. It's, how we're people of color, we have color dark. We know when when you are not accepted, or we don't want to work for you, because we know we don't trust you, because you are Black or brown. So I know that what that feeling feels like, and it's very, not overt, but it's very, under the radar for them, but we catch up on it, right? Like we have the expression of gaydar, right? We know that, that's that coloredar. We have it, we feel it. So I've experienced that with 3 major companies that I've tried to contact and recruit them to fill an application with us and become a sponsorship from. And I'm like, and I knew that was the reason, but we just move on. You move on and you find people who are more accepting and want the opportunity to showcase their business. And come and present for us. So I've been in that situation, and so I know what that feels like as far as the corporate level of fitness. And it's very difficult for a new Black fitness convention, Black owned fitness convention that has a record of 4 different conventions we've had so far, with an outstanding record of the #1 convention that's the most diverse. We can say that across the whole world, that we are the most diverse fitness convention in the world, because we have Latino, we have Jamaican, we have Black, we have people from all Curacao, from all walks of life, Australia, Canada, and so we want that diversity, which makes you stronger. And that's what some white leadership people in the leadership industry up in the upper echelons of owning huge corporations, they overlook that diversity makes you stronger, right? And inclusion makes you weaker. And now that it's brought to the surface because of George Floyd, I know I kind of jumped the subject, that whole idea of being more inclusive and being more diverse because of the attention that we've gotten from Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, that we need to jump on the bandwagon and start looking for more diverse employment opportunities for people now.
Exactly.
I love this question. That's that too.
Go ahead, Rain.
It goes to the programming. So I teach the Soca Dance Party programming, and I remember bringing it to my specific location and asking, can I teach this program? And I used my reputation that I had the #1 class in that location. It was always full. People fought to get into my class. Like, they literally had to give out tickets. And then I said, can I bring this new program? And it was taught in another region in Ontario, so in the Durham region. And I asked, and I was declined time after time after time to bring this program. And is it corporate? I don't know why they were saying no. The only difference between me and everybody else bringing a program was I was a Black female, right? So they denied me every single time. Yet, and they said the reason that they gave me is because we only do corporate programs. Yet I was like, well, how come in gym A, B, C, D, you have this program running? I don't understand that. If it's corporate, why isn't it corporate all over? Why is it corporate only when it comes to your location? Eventually, a year later, another location accepted my idea. And I'm going to tell you this, it was accepted because a white female sold my concept and my program. I tried myself to sell it. I couldn't even sell it. She brought it to the manager's attention. This girl, she's great. She's done X, Y, Z. She's presented to this many people. And she has this program. These are her numbers. And they said, okay, let's give it a try. And of course, first day, the room was packed, right? COVID has happened since then, so I haven't had a chance to represent it to the main location where I'm based at. But it was kind of like the same thing, like this, why are you saying no to me?
Exactly. And I just want to speak to that, Renee. I mean, that's an excellent example. Like, how many times have we been in a situation where we want to present a project or we want to present an idea, but then it gets rejected, even though we have demonstrated over and over again that we are competent, that we are good at what we do, but then a white person presents the same idea, right? And just for people who are listening, they think, oh, no, it's not that, it's not racism. It's like, we have to admit and just acknowledge the fact that racism is so indoctrinated in our society that we may not want to call or name it that, but we are conditioned to see white as good and innocent and as preferred. and Blackness as negative and bad. We're all conditioned from that, just from the media, just from our education, how we've been raised. So sure, know that people oftentimes are not intentionally and deliberately try to be mean or exclude, but they have to recognize, they have to look within themselves, say, okay, why are you treating this person a certain way and another person a different way or preferred way when they're offering the same project or basically the same product? Need to kind of look deeper and ask questions and kind of say, hey, what's going on here? Because I've been in that situation many times. Is anybody, Steve, I see you want to jump in? Or
I think sometimes where that's a systemic or unconscious bias, systemic racism or unconscious bias comes in, is in Renee's example, they don't see that as viable programming because it's unknown to them. Soca was unknown to them. Bollywood is unknown to the person making the decision. They've seen it on a movie, they've seen it on a clip, but they don't realize they're making the decision, or they could be making the decision because they're not familiar with it. So they assume other people are not familiar with it. So, but they're making a corporate decision based on their personal familiarization with programming, if we're speaking about programming specifically. And this ties, I guess, back to leadership. So if there's someone in leadership was more familiar with that programming or more open to showing more diverse programming, decisions like happened to Renee would happen on the first go. She'd be like, yes, let's give this a shot. But there's like a pushback because there's a lack of familiarity with good fitness programming, right? Or what they think that should look like. And that looks like different things for different populations of people, right?
Yeah.
For example, to take color out of race out of it, think about low impact programming, which it's being erased, I find, from a lot of gym schedules because it seems like that doesn't have, at least in my experience, it doesn't have value, it doesn't have presence. In that, and also it becomes a little bit ageist. They're not that only older people need to do low impact programming. There's lots of reasons people gravitate towards low impact programming, but it's not viable because it's not popular. What's popular is skinny and ripped up white people, right? To put it bluntly, right? So, and that's what's they're familiarized with that in the fitness industry, but they're not sure what's soca. I don't know about the soca thing. I think they do something. I think they have happens at carnival, right? I think there's costumes. Are you going to be wearing does everyone have to have a costume? Like, yeah. So, I mean, I know being a bit facetious here, but back to the point of leadership, if you had people in leadership roles, it can make different decisions, which would lead to more variety of programming and more exposure for the corporation, for the small gym, and for their members as well.
Yeah.
And that's why diversity matters, right? That's why diversity matters. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over.
No, I was just going to add, like,
So
so the gym that did take my program on, they took it on pure blind faith based on what the white female had presented. And I had the numbers, it was speaking, this just started in December, then COVID happened. So I stopped teaching. I came back to the gym and I got hired back to teach again. We were welcomed back into the gym, and that only lasted a week. But I was welcomed back in, and that's when the manager, she actually got for the first time to see my program because I was teaching in the evening. So she actually never saw the program. So it was all by faith. Then the numbers spoke for themselves, and the compliments, the recommendations of the gym members were speaking for themselves. She actually saw my class that day, her and some other members of management. And she said, oh my God, your program is phenomenal. This is amazing. Because I did a lunchtime class because of COVID. I was working from home. I said, I'll just do a lunchtime class. And she saw it and she was so impressed. And I was like, this is what I need. Because you're a white female too, just like how a white female recommended me. Unfortunately, this is the only vehicle I have to take my program to another location because other people in my region should be teaching this program. It's Soca Party, but it's, in my area, a lot of Caribbean people are gym members. And so this is the music they listen to. So it would be a popular program. It would drive traffic to gyms. But yeah, no one, unless I have like the approval or like the credits from another female that's not a person of color, I only get approval. Like, I don't know. I accept
it. It goes back to just, Yeah, and it goes back again to bringing it back to again those unconscious bias and that deep-seated programming that white people have to be the leaders and the instigators and be in charge, and then we get allowed to be, we're given permission to be included. So we need to change that. We need to be, and this is going back to equality. It needs to be a situation where we have equal standing and equal opportunity and can be just the same benefit of the doubt a white person would be given if you're presenting a program. But yeah, that's a great example. And I'll just give one example I've had to experience myself in stepping into a leadership role. 2016, I started the Toronto Carnival Run, which is the only Black-owned, Black-run running event in Canada, and it's fully accredited and it's fully sanctioned. And I'm the only Black race director in the country, and it has come with its challenges. I would notice, for example, in year 2, when I was getting my permits and I was setting up to do the event, I found out by accident that the city decided to do construction right at my start line, which is a nightmare. Like any race director will tell you, that is the worst nightmare you can probably think of, is construction at your start line. And I found this out 14 days prior to the event. And everything is planned at this point. And I remember when I was confronting the city and saying, you know what, you guys need to do something about this. I have a major event happening. People are coming from around the world for this event. And just to remember the overall, the way that I was treated by the park supervisor. I mean, these were all white males, kind of like, treating like angry Black woman, even though I was very professional, but very direct, saying that, this, they told me about this, this needs to be fixed. And I remember him saying to me, oh, well, it's a big park. You can just relocate your start line somewhere else. I'm like, no, I can't. It doesn't work that way. Like, if you understand how road races work, I mean, it's a lot of work just to measure the course. It's hours and hours and days. So to change where you're starting means you have to remeasure the entire course, which is a nightmare. I just remember the processes of that feeling of the subtle racism that, they didn't even realize that I was the boss. Like, I am actually the boss. You're talking to the boss, and just the way that they're sort of like mansplaining and that sort of like condescending tone of, what's the big deal, that, and it was unfortunately, this is the stuff that we have to deal with. It's not that I let it put me down, but it's just a constant kind of cloud over your head. I find that when you do step into a leadership role, there are those that kind of feel like you're not supposed to be there, and they indirectly let you feel that you're not supposed to be there, and you find yourself almost second guessing, like, am I supposed to be here? But we have to push on. But it's something that we have to deal with.
That's historic, by the way. I just wanted to add that what we experience now is historic. It's historic because it goes all the way back to Frederick Douglass. It comes all the way through the being treated that way, and how he had to fight and professionally speak on a platform to get the attention of the President of the United States, which Frederick Douglass was accepted into the White House and was able to give his speech and his views on the systemic racism that was happening back in the 1800s. Now that comes all the way now through Jim Crow, and Jim Crow treating Black people the same way, not giving us the credit that we deserve because of the talents that we possess, and not giving us the opportunity to prove ourselves. And not only that, put the financial end of it. You have to have the funding to be able to start companies in fitness industry. You have to be able to have the backing to be able to have sponsorships and corporate partnerships financially, to be able to put your foot in the door as a Black person who's trying to increase, their revenue themselves and make their presence known, to spread that around the world. Now, that what Dione said, directly reminded me of this. This is the way it's been historically in our country, and in the United States and in Canada, that we have to be extra. extra special,
Yeah,
extra
10 times
talented,
better.
extra educated, extra everything, extra finances in order to play a part and compete in the all-white world of not only fitness, but in other corporate entities as well.
I think to your point, Connie, we need to be, I find my personal experience, we need to be extra, but not extra POC, not extra BIPOC. You just need to be extra in your abilities of what you're able to do, but don't be too brown. We all know about code switching and words we probably don't say because that's going to sound too ethnic in a regular conversation. Like, to put it bluntly, we talk to white people differently than we talk to our people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I find, I'll speak for myself. Like, I know code switching happens a lot in this industry, I find. But like, to your point, like, we can only be extra to a certain point of how our extraness will fit into what they think will be good.
Yes.
We can't just be our full selves moving forward.
And for those who are unfamiliar with,
go ahead.
Sorry, just for those who are unfamiliar with the term code switching, is kind of when I probably the easiest way to explain it is when a Black person or a person of color has to adjust themselves and their language to make a white person feel more comfortable. And it's not to say that we're saying negative things about white people or anything like that, but you feel like you have to diminish yourself or speak a different way than how you might speak amongst people that accept you for who you are. And it's kind of stressful. You have to be like tiptoeing around and making sure that you don't say something that cost you your job or block you from promotion and so on and so forth. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Perfect example, just to put in there, and I know that if the four of us have seen Queen Latifah in the movie Bringing Down the House, have you seen Bringing Down the House? Yes, we all have. Yeah. Perfect example. When she walked into his office, says, "Oh, I can speak white. I can speak perfectly. Oh, this is wonderful. Are you surprised that I can speak articulately?" Right? She goes, "No, I don't have to get what I should get. I should speak and be myself to be able to achieve, goals as well as myself in my own culture." Right? So yes, English is the standard language. Yes, you should speak proper English. I'm an English teacher. You should speak proper English. I've taught generations of children to teach proper English skills and not the Ebonics or slang when they're trying to do a job interview, or anything like that. But there's a time and there's a place for everything. And I was taught that by my opinion, there's a time to speak, slang, and there's a time when you want to speak the King's English. And articulate your words. So I speak to my children differently than I speak to, the world population or my job situation. So that's something you have to be, we're going to have to know that for life. That's a life skill. That's for all Black people.
Oh yeah.
And brown people.
Sometimes I find in those situations, I mean, I'm a bit of a activist, I guess. I will use my language, our language, and I'll say, "Oh," if they look confused, like, "Oh, do you know what that means? Have you ever heard?" I'll be like, "Oh, in my culture, this is what that refers to." I mean, it's a little bit of a leadership role in terms of everyday interactions with, especially in the fitness industry with management. It's just like in a small thing like that, I'm like, I try to not have to mute myself in those situations. I was going to say, just.
I think too. Go ahead, sir.
I was going to say, just a quick thing with regards to like leadership role or leadership things I'm doing is, for one company, I've inserted myself in their whole plan to become diverse, inclusive, equitable. My insertion hasn't been well received, but they can't not insert me, right? So I've just got myself involved with how I think, with some input. I'm not a leader by any means in terms of I don't have any decision making with this one company. But I'm not stepping away from the fact that I can provide some information that might be beneficial. And I guess one other aspect is with all the virtual programming that we're all learning how to do, for being in the industry for so many years, I've been mentored some people, and I've just taken on that role of helping people figure out how to do these Zoom classes, how your music works, just because it's been a long haul for all of us to figure it out. And I've kind of gotten finessed it a little bit. So that's how I'm trying to lead in that. Being a person of color and a fitness professional, lead in that way.
Well, for sure, we have to we do have to, as you say, insert ourselves many times. If the opportunities are not given to us, we have to, as I say, if they don't give you a seat at the table, build your own effing table, is what I believe, right? So let's talk a little bit
Hence
about
the move convention.
intersectionality.
I
There you
said,
go.
hence the move convention, right? They won't seat us at the table when we
Yeah,
build our own table. That's why we started the, that's the premise that we started the move convention on.
exactly, exactly. So let's talk a bit about intersectionality. Being Black on a universal monolithic experience. So I want to kind of talk about combining and understanding gender as a role, as well as transgender considerations, LGBTQ considerations. And I'll give you an example. Start off by giving an example. I would oftentimes wonder, okay, what causes people to be attracted to a class? I've seen situations where I've seen a white instructor who may be like, okay, doesn't blow your mind, but her class is packed. Or same thing with a white male instructor. But I may come with all sorts of tricks and program designed to blow your mind, and I'm okay, why am I not attracting people here? Or I've seen other times, it doesn't always, it's not a standard per se, but sometimes you kind of wonder, okay, are these playing a factor into what attracts people to support an instructor, or to support a fitness program, depending on who's in front. So just kind of want to open that discussion up to all of you to ask, have you noticed or seen when this kind of situation, people might be more attracted to one person? It might be because of how they look, or maybe the flaming gay guy, they're like, oh, he's so cute, I'm gonna go to that class. What has been your experience in that level as well?
I think I'll go first. That's okay. So I think being a person of color, I think at the beginning of my career, I didn't hide the gay part of myself, but I didn't accentuate that. By accentuating, I meant just being normal, just being me. I wasn't really, so the word accentuate probably wasn't the correct word. Once again, I guess I muted myself and my mannerisms and the words I would use. I find being a male, I guess my point of view would be from a male person. I find cisgendered straight males is the ideal of what a fitness should look like for a man, in terms of six pack, rippling muscles, and all those types of things. So I feel like I fought for years of trying to get to that look, and I'll be validated. And then I would be valued in the industry. And as I went through, I realized if I started to just unmute myself and be me. But literally, I'm 100% me when you come to my class, which is what I think was speaking to people being attracted to you for your classes. I think that's what's attracted people to me, because I am just 100% me all the time.
You're authentic.
Yeah, authentic, yes. And I'll act more gay sometimes because that's what I felt like at that moment of time. What I didn't get it. Like, I can be strong and have gay mannerisms at the same time. It's okay. Like, all that's okay. I mean, that's also another issue in the LGBT world about how you fit into the straight world or cisgendered world and heteronormative stuff. That's another topic. But I found that my intersectionality makes me, if I live all my identity, it makes me more authentic. And to Connie's point, I think when you're authentic and people can see that's real authenticity, that's something they're attracted to, I think.
Yes. We're Black, it's gonna come out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, right.
But I find too that it can be a little bit of, it can be a bit sticky in the sense that while you're trying to sort of fit in or find your teaching persona, because I mean, we all have a teaching persona as opposed to when we're chilled out, right? And trying to be able to say, okay, people are coming from more than just program design. How do I attract? And we have a special challenge in that a lot of times we have great program design, great communication, check all the boxes. But then I've had situations where someone has looked in the room, they looked at me, I was substituting, for example, they just looked at me and then turned around. And I'm like, wow, you haven't even come in to see if I'm qualified. And, that can be hurtful, but at the same time, I do understand that because, again, we're so programmed that we want to, as Steve say, the cisgender white male, kind of thing, or cisgender white female. And if you don't see that, there's a lot of things that need to be packed in asking the questions. Why do you not just trust that the person who has been hired to teach this class will likely be able to give you a possible class, right? Any other thoughts on that?
Something exactly happened to me. I was overtly heckled is the word, heckled while I was teaching for like the past 2 years, on and off, by this elderly 78-year-old white Italian man. He's Italian. His name is Gino. But he would yell out while I was teaching my classes with a microphone, teaching my classes. He would be, "Hey, your music's too loud. Turn that down. You know what you're talking about. You end your class early. I want to, and he would be yelling from the spa across the entire huge area where everyone in the pool could hear. Now, the people in the pool were just outraged. They left the class. They told me that was so rude of him to do that to me. They left when the class was over. They went to the administrative office to file complaints, many complaints. And then I would, of course, report every time that happened. I reported to my building manager, at Lifetime, and tell them, hey, this guy is interrupting my class. He's making me feel, awful. And why would we let him? Why would we let him continue to do that? And this is like the fourth time. I was just saying, this is when it happens. Like, this is like the fourth time he's done that. Why can't you tell him not to be able to come while I teach? Maybe tell him he can't come into the pool area until 10 o'clock. My class is 9 to 10. And so I was really getting to the point where it was really getting frustrating, where I was thinking, you know what, I'm not going to teach at this facility where I'm treated like that. It was really overt, and everybody saw it, and everybody was wondering this, especially when there's 2 other white instructors. Remember, I told you there's 3 of us, and I have 3 classes, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and the other ones had the other 2. He never said anything to them, no matter if the music was too loud. And I was really conscious about, not making my music too loud. So I was like, lowering it down to talk to my class. Is that okay for everybody? Can everybody hear the music? Is my mic too loud? Check, mic check. So I always made sure at the beginning of class that it was okay. Everything was good as far as volume, decibels, and all of that. But I talked to one of the other instructors, and I said, has he ever heckled you before when you're teaching? And she's like, no. She goes, that's Gino. I'm like, you know what? That's prejudice. I felt prejudiced against. Why aren't you heckling the other 2 white girls? Because they're cute little white girls. One has a European accent from England, right? Both are wonderful girls, and I adore them, right? My colleagues, and one of them is my neighbor who comes over here. We used to go grocery shopping for me. Well, when the shutdown happened, love her dearly. But I was like, it needs to be addressed to the building manager, not only my immediate group fitness director, but the building manager and the owner of Lifetime, the owner of the chain of Lifetime, right? Who is an Indian, Eastern Indian descent gentleman. So what I was expecting is that they would speak to him, which they did. They spoke to him personally. Monica, the manager, she spoke to him herself. He'd be sitting over there. He just comes to sit in a chair, like there's lawn chairs all around the whole perimeter. People come and just sit in the lawn chairs and watch me teach.
Wow.
They watch the show. People come and just to watch the show. People don't believe me when I tell them. I said, there's the people there's lap swimmers. Yeah, we take over. There's 5 lanes, and we take over 3 of the lanes, and there's 2 that will remain open for lap swimmers, of course. But people do come and sit, and they're waiting. Either they're waiting for, and there's swim lessons going on the other children's pool. There's 3 pools in there. So there's children's lessons going over on the other side of the building, and where parents are sitting in the chairs waiting for their children to be done with their half-hour swim lessons. But there's people that'll come in and sit, waiting for class to be over or whatever. And they're watching me. So I would, my eyes are going everywhere when I'm teaching. I'm like,
creepy.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I'm used to it though. I used to think it was creepy the first year or two because they've never had a black aqua instructor, right? Before. Who's this black lady up here teaching aqua?
The stereotype, black
what
people
do differently.
Black people don't like the water. What is she doing? Black people don't like to get their hair wet. What does she think she's doing?
She can't save us.
I was literally right. Speaking of what Renee just said, I was literally felt like I was on stage for real in several different levels. But this guy, they had to speak to him and speak to him and speak to him and speak to him, right? And I would never say one word to him. I used to say hi. He used to say hi to I used to say hi to you, until he kept on doing it. He kept on disrespecting me. So I stopped speaking to him completely. He would be saying after class, he would try to walk up to me and say something to me. And I would just turn around and walk the other way. Right. And avoid the situation. Then I would go tell, her that he tried to say something to me today. Right. Which I didn't want to hear because it was ignorant. It's completely, they're always
He's not your
completely ignorant.
supervisor.
So if he ever does that again, I'm going to definitely report him. I told her, I'm going to make a police report if you don't do something about it. So anyway, she came to talk to him and he did chill out. He did chill out after that because it was total disrupt. And I was wondering, has this happened to anyone else? Has anyone ever?
And that's a question we have to ask ourselves usually, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not talking about this. Is completely different. Stephen knows because Stephen teaches aqua. This completely different environment when you're in the pool. People come in and out all the time when you're teaching, people walking in and out. They may walk behind you, they may walk to the side of you because they're coming in to swim or they're coming in to lessons or whatever, but they come in all the time and it's a distraction. I have to put tunnel vision on when I'm teaching. Okay, it's not like in a studio where you start the class, nobody's going to come in unless they come in late and come in the back and they're quiet. Nobody's going to say anything to you, right, while you're teaching, right? So I'm like, this has never happened to me before. This is overt racism. This is not systemic racism. This is overt racism from this old white man, old white Italian man who doesn't like Black people. And it didn't even faze me that it was a Black woman, because he hadn't said anything to the other white women. So this is because I was a Black person, right? That I have had to deal with presently up until the beginning of 2020.
Wow. And I guess, and again, I've taught aqua as well, and I've been in situations, even not even aqua, where again, there's this person that, and again, I can't judge whether they like us or not, but for me, at least, I never assume it's because of my color. I think, okay, is there something that I'm doing wrong here? And that's when you have conversations with your colleagues, like, have you experienced it? Have you experienced it? And then you realize, okay, none of my white colleagues are experiencing this. So what is the reason why I'm experiencing it? So it's kind of like we constantly have this cloud, as I mentioned before, of questioning, like, okay, why is the situation happening? I don't want to assume it's because of race. Maybe it's something else. And then you eliminate everything else and you realize, okay, there's nothing I can do that would stop this person from behaving the way that they're behaving. I can only report it and hopefully people in charge do something about it, right? But yeah, it is uncomfortable. I've been in those situations where somebody thinks that they can, be a backseat driver, and there's been times when I literally have to say, do you want to teach the class? Kind of thing. So it can be frustrating in that respect as well. But I want to kind of move on if somebody else had something to say on that. But I want to kind of move on to talk about report card. We know right after George Floyd, various companies were making solidarity statements. They were posting their black squares and making their promises. And how we're now 7 months later, and kind of want to get a feel from your experiences, from all of our experiences, are we seeing any type of real changes with these corporations? Have you noticed anything? And And how do we kind of hold them accountable to their various statements and promises? What are your thoughts on that?
I've noticed from SCW Fitness Education that there's been an increase in Black presenters. Being honest.
Good.
I've been there all along. It's like my 4th year since 2017, January of 2017, presenting. That there has been an increase in very well qualified Black presenters who are stellar in their instruction or company that they owned or their business endeavors, who should have had a place at the table years ago.
And for the people in the back, Connie, I hear you. I hear you. Any other thoughts?
Now they're visible, and I'm so happy about that. It's not like out of 80 presenters, it used to be one would be me, or one other besides me, or two, or three max out of 80 presenters. That's the way it used to be, right? So now we're seeing maybe 7, 8 out of, 60, 70 now it's virtual. So that's an improvement. It is.
Good, which is good.
It
I'll
is.
be
So
presenting
that's,
next month, so yeah.
it could be a trend. That's, that could be an upgrowing trend that is good. So as far as the, fitness presenting level, which is, I've seen that, and that's pretty noticeable, and especially when you stop putting Blacks on the front cover of your print media, right? And then not having representation, not having Black face representation in a convention. So that has changed, which is good. I did not want to see Black print representation when there was no Blacks chosen to present. So that's an improvement, and I'd like to see that improvement happen at the local levels now. The influx of more educated, Black, qualified, certified fitness instructors across the whole country and the whole land in Canada. I say country, and I mean United States and Canada, because you guys are like together. We are together.
Yeah. I hear you. Renee and Steve, and have you noticed any differences, any changes in your experience? What are your thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Renee. I saw you were going to say something. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was going to say it's hard to see differences because in terms of like teaching live, all the gyms are closed. So we're in the Zoom world, right? So the only thing I can say is I certainly know there's that many more Black instructors because now my network, or call it your competition, you can now see other people. You can see, like I can see in Atlanta, I can see in Florida, I can see Chicago, I can see in Russia, for crying out loud. Like there's that many more classes. So now you notice that many more people. But you know what? At the same time, that could be a really good thing, because let's just say these organizations that Connie talks about that host these conventions, maybe they said they didn't know there was qualified people. Well, now you know, because we're all on Zoom. Go on Zoom and you'll find a million classes represented by people of all colors, of all sexual orientations, the BIPOC, the LGBTQ+, etc. They're all there. And if you didn't know they're there before, I'm just calling Zoom, but people use other different web applications. But now you know they're there. So in that sense, being sort of quarantined, you can see that much more perhaps.
And I think to Renee's point, and this is where we hold people's feet to the fire, the fact that there's this much exposure and you've done your learning and you've hired this consultant company or whoever it is to help you with your learning process, it just has to start to look different. There's no other excuse. There's so much access to exposure. There's no other excuse. So in one organization, I am 100% holding their feet to the fire, because the executive management team went through this training, their diversity training, which I guess will happen for the instructors and trainers at some point as well, but I guess they started at that level. but they're still making similar decisions. As of last week, that's exactly the same that they made in March with regards to representation on some of their platforms. I'm like, I know it takes time to learn, but now I know you specifically have gone through the training. You specifically know what the issue is at hand, but you're making the same decisions.
Mhm.
So I'm not Mr. Nice Guy anymore when it comes to that. I'm like, we need to talk a bit more. I mean, I have no authority over anything, but I'm like, you guys know me, I have a big mouth, right? I'm like, no, we need to talk. Something is not.
Your
2 +
voice
2
is
not
important.
equaling 4. It's not happening. Not on my watch. This is not happening on my
Yeah.
watch. No. But
That's
some, also,
important. You have to speak up.
also some of the things is, I think sometimes when I speak up, people think it's because I want to be the one picked. I'm like, that's not ever been the situation. It's not because it would be fun to be picked, but that's not why I fight for these things. It's for the representation of all people to have the opportunities to know that they can be picked. But I do think sometimes it sits in, also, if they did select me, I would probably turn it down because I'd be like, is that your answer to the problem? That's not the answer to the problem. You didn't fix anything.
Right.
And that really talks to
And
the
we can't-
accountability that everybody
Sure, go
has.
ahead.
You know, we're going through this, call it a movement, right? I guess it's technically a movement, where persons of color are now brought to the forefront as not being treated equally. And so if these companies are recognizing and they say they're going to do X, Y, and Z, how are we? Are they putting their money where their mouth is? Are they just saying it now because we're quiet? And like how is the, like, one example I wanted to use is sort of like the step 2. So in one of an organization I work for, this is not a fitness organization, they did a really good job of creating a diversity panel. And so a lot of people go into this diversity panel. We have a panel for LGBTQ, we have a panel for race, we have a panel for women, we have a panel for disability. So all these panels are created. And so now I'm part of one of the panels. I'm in the women's panel. We go forward and not check, but it's like we're looking within the company, finding the gaps. So we found the gap. Let's just say we found the gap. The gap is there's not enough Black presenters. Do we just stop there and say, okay, we're going to hire 5 presenters, done, close the book, and that's it? 2000 is done. We hired some Black presenters, we're done. Or do we keep this momentum going, and next year we check them for the same thing? Like, are we ingraining it into our everyday, or are we just doing it as a one-stop shop fix? Like, okay, I gotta hire a Black executive. Great, he's hired. No more. The job is taken. We've got the token. Or are we saying, no, this needs to be part of our mantra, our speech?
And that's exactly it. It has to be a start. I think first you have to start shirts. I feel like tokenism at the beginning, but it has to start. Like, you're going to have to deliberately, not you, but corporations have to deliberately make a decision to bring in BIPOC people, because we have to keep in mind systemic racism didn't occur over a few years. We're talking about hundreds of years, and this was done deliberately to keep people of color out of key positions. Because if you keep people of color out of management, high-paying positions, then you control who has the wealth and you control who has power. So it has to start with, okay, allowing more of us to be in the power positions. It kind of goes back to, actually, I have my copy here. I love it. For those who have not read this book yet, please get a copy of this book, White Fragility. And Dr. Robin DiAngelo makes some good points when she talks about how in 1920, when actually white women got the vote, people say women got the vote, no, it was white women who got the vote. In 1965, it was Black people, including Black women, got the vote. The reason why women got the vote in 1920 in the US is because some men had to concede and allow them to be part of the political conversation, right? And so, yes, they were allowed and they expressed that wanted to have the right to vote, but it was some of the white men had to concede that and kind of, as sort of tokenism, what have you, allow them to come and be part of it. So it's the same situation where those in power right now, they have to allow us to be part of the table. And yes, this year they may take off a couple of people, but we also hold them accountable to say, okay, what are you going to do next year and the year after? And until it becomes normal to just hire people based on the merit and make sure everybody has equal opportunity.
What I have been noticing is I've been noticing that some big corporate fitness companies have been actually pulling away from other companies who they were co-sponsoring or in co-business with, have actually been pulling away from some other companies who have not changed or not had shown a plan to change their hiring practices. And be in alignment with the new move toward diversity and inclusion. So I've actually noticed a couple of different companies that broke off with them because of their history of hiring practices of majority of white employees or a majority of white company co-ownerships. And that's a step toward the right direction. Letting these other big companies know that it's not okay to keep the same white employees without opening the door of opportunity for other, or even if the blacks who have in the past tried to get into the company and denied, the door was closed on them. And I'm talking about the past as of the past 10 years, okay? 10 years, 10 to 20 years, they have stopped applying because it seemed like it's no use. They feel like, why should I apply? They're not going to hire me. They're just going to hire the white person, right? So I've heard that, and not my answer is always stay encouraged, keep applying, keep trying. Times will change. They always do. Dr. King said that. Dr. King says we cannot just stop our fight. We must continue to fight until we win, and we have to do it in the way that is acceptable in the peaceful protests, okay? So I have noticed that, without calling out any names or anything, but I have definitely noticed an international convention, an international company has dismissed certain people, certain persons from their board of directors because of their own company's practices, hiring practices of not being inclusive enough. And they want to go to their company, international company wants to go toward more inclusion and diversity. So they've not seen them submit any steps or any plans to increase their diversity and inclusion. So they've ousted them from their company. That I've noticed.
Wow, so that's big.
That's a big one.
Yeah, and I think too, I've also noticed that, some of the larger, even big box gyms as well are starting to make plans. And, we can only give them some time, but I think the main thing is that there is an effort. They are trying to do so. I would like to see more, even also the smaller gyms, because I did notice as well that there are quite a few that I, peaked in, and I still see, very much white male dominated, like the owner, the personal trainers, what have you. And then, you hope that if they don't recognize for themselves, and we have to start mentioning and saying, okay, where is your diversity and what's your diversity plan? But I know
people don't recognize, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that will not happen, Dione, until they have been outed publicly. Mm-hmm. And that we have to use social media to do that, because you get the most attention on these huge platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, right? TikTok. They need to be outed or they will never change. They will never change. They need to have, what do you call it? Take the sheets off the bed and uncover their practices so that change will eventually happen, because they have been shamed to openly, publicly recognize their hiring practices.
I also think within those senior levels of management, I've had someone in senior level of management reach out to me on a personal level asking, do I do enough? Do I do enough as a manager? One of the things I fed the feedback with that individual is, if you're in a situation, this person was involved with 8 other managers, all white women at the same level of management. I'm like, if you feel diversity, if you in your heart feel and you're having a conversation, a meeting, that diversity, if the topic's diversity, and this is what she was specifically calling me about, is not being addressed, you have to be brave enough to step up and say something in that meeting, knowing that that might not be received as well, but that's how you can do it. And the point I was trying to make is people in senior leadership need to challenge each other. Because they're all learning at different rates, but some people might appear at this point, they've accelerated their learning process of all these things. They need to challenge. They need to have the strength and courage to challenge. And some of it, sometimes I feel they don't challenge because they don't want to lose any power. They're not going to lose, maybe they feel like they're going to lose their job too. And I get the sense of job security as well. But it has to happen at that level too. They need to challenge each other to think differently, to make things happen.
And uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but it's something that has to be done because, you know, like you said, Steve, I know me moving forward. I'm interested in going back to normal. I want to go forward to greatness. So we have to put the pressure and make sure that these companies accountable, as well as, you know, looking within ourselves and we're doing our best to work and to work alongside with our allies, but at the same time, we have to hold count in different ways. So just before we close up for today, just want to, any closing thoughts? Just go around through each of you. If you were to if somebody were to ask you, well, what can I do, or how can I be more of an ally to the BIPOC community? There are some thoughts you'd like to share. Let's go around the panel for anyone who wants to jump in.
I'd say at first I'd ask them, what does that mean to you? Because I could tell them what it means to me to be an ally to me, but at first I'd like to get an understanding of what they think that means in the first place in order for me to try to help them or give them some suggestions. Right, because I have to know what their thought process is about things first before I tell them this is how it could work, because maybe those two things won't align. So usually I try to, if someone approaches me, how do I do this better? I'm like, well, what in particular, with regards to race, be like, well, what do you think that means in general, and what do you think that means to you in your life? And then usually that's at that point, that's when I have a further discussion with them.
Mm-hmm.
But also don't be afraid to ask sometimes, right? Don't be afraid to ask.
Mm-hmm.
I would add to that.
How did you have any thoughts?
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Ben.
Okay, I was gonna say I would add to that, like, also to get educated. So if education to you means reading a book, then read a book, do a course or something like that, but not just stop there. You need to normalize it for yourself. You need to internalize and normalize. So, you know, I think about when I learn something, if I learn something in school, you know, until you actually put it into practice, all it is theory, right? So if you read something and you read about microaggressions, maybe have a conversation and be honest with yourself. Have a conversation with a person of color, or doesn't even matter. It doesn't have to be a person of color. It could be whatever the issue is, and ask, do I do this? What does that look like? Or if I don't do this, what does it look like when someone does this? How does it feel? And try to internalize it and feel for yourself. Because once you start to own that feeling, you can normalize sort of the truth walk, the move forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good point. Any thought, Connie, on that? Kind of what suggestions or we could do to help any allies or anyone that would assist in any suggestions?
Well, make yourself available for them to be able to come to you. Make yourself open, warm, loving, thoughtful, kindness, so that they will approach you to ask, what can I do? You know, I've had several people do that. They come to ask me, what can I do to help? You know, and that's wonderful. I mean, that's great that they feel that way, and they're looking for suggestions. That I would first tell them is be more open. Just be more open to more possibilities of a diverse kind of people that want to come and join in what we're doing. Be more open to talk to someone Black. Be more open to invite someone to come to breakfast or or invite them to come to lunch. This is prior COVID. We had monthly aqua luncheons with the community of Lifetime Fitness members. And once a month, every first Friday of every month, we go and meet at a different restaurant and have a community, fellowship with our aqua members, which is wonderful. Connie, are you coming? Yes, I'll be there. Yes, I'll be there with my grandbaby, my 18-month-old grandbaby. I bring him because I drop him off at the child care center and then go teach my classes. So I'd always have him with me every time I went to teach, and then on the luncheons I'd be sitting there, oh, I want to sit next to the baby, whatever. But it's as far as other fitness professionals, speaking to a fitness professional, what can I do to increase the number of Blacks that come to my class? It's the most popular question that I do get. Where are you asking them from? Go to social media, go to some of the Black groups that are on and invite. There's lots of Black fitness groups online right now, especially on Facebook and on Instagram, that are popping up all over. There's International Black Fitness Association. There's Black Fitness in United States. I'm sure there's Black fitness companies that are online that are catering to people in Canada. So use your social media. Go hit up some of these areas that are highly populated with numbers of Blacks and Browns who log in to that website and start inviting them, start hitting them up, start friend requesting them. It's all about social media, really. So it's about friend requesting more Black people. I mean, it sounds like basic and it sounds, but if you don't have more Black friends, how are you going to associate and how are you going to get more population to come to you, gravitate toward you so that you can feel like you're helping the situation. So that's what's one thing that I try to hit on, besides being myself in a situation where I can hire more Blacks, and it feels good. I've never been in a business situation to be able to do that before. Remember, I'm a 32-year veteran teacher. I'm coming from education, and then I turned into a business person just in the past 5 years, with my mom giving me the quilt business, and now with the Move Convention for the past 3 years, it's like, wow, I'm on a fast learning curve for corporate business dealings. And it feels really, really good to be in that position to hire and incorporate more minorities and people of color into our organization, which is being recognized now by other groups saying we need to do what Move is doing. So it's
exactly.
Can I just put a quick button on this? I know this might be confusing for some white people, saying because we've all suggested that they speak to someone or ask people, and they said, well, and then there's messaging that it's laborious for us to have to deal with this all the time. It's okay to ask some questions, definitely, but as you start to learn, you can continue to learn through other, like as Renee was saying, if it's a movie, if it's whatever, there's usually other resources within that one book, White Fragility, as Dione was saying. There's other reasons, just look within that resource that Dione gave to you, and then continue from there, and then pass it on to someone, be like, have you read this book? Yeah. So you don't, in terms of the messaging gets confusing sometimes, like you say to ask, you say you don't ask, it's okay to ask, but then continue to do the work and incorporate other, in this situation, your other white friends to help do the work.
And to tap on what Renee just said, education. What I'm just saying, commenting what Renee just said, it's about educating yourself to the person who's trying to implement more diversion or diversity into their programming or into their business. More education about our past gives you more understanding of what the future is going to be looking like. And that's one of the mantras and the models that I have for doing the quilt presentation. We have to not ignore what happened in the past in order for us to be stronger in an evolving future. That is something that people they were not taught in school. So it's like, almost like, if you weren't educated on that in school and history to know what were some of the oppressions that Black people went through, to give us the attitudes and be sometimes the behaviors and, you know, which are what the negative behaviors, which go off of what Dr. King taught about peaceful protests, but that's the anger that comes behind what has happened to us and what systemically has continued to happen in our own families and friends that we've witnessed. Housing for one. You still, in some parts of this country, cannot get into a neighborhood because you are Black. Still, in the 21st century, in the 2020s. And this is something that was brought to the attention with Lorraine Hansberry writing the play, A Raisin in the Sun, where they're trying to get a house in the 1950s. And because you're Black, you know, you can't have it, or they charge you even more money than they would the average white person to get into because they would need the money, you know? So it's that different outlook, being able to have more reading, great suggestion. I will be getting that book today on Amazon. Thank you, Dione. And there's so many more out there on the market that will address how attitudes and perceptions and underlying biases have affected people in the way that they deal with different cultures, period. And that just needs to be checked.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to close by saying that the fight for social justice and equality is a lot like with fitness, like a muscle. We all know that one squat and one push-up does not make you fit, right? It is a process. It's something that we have to continue doing. So likewise, when it comes to, you know, those of our allies who sincerely want to be part of social justice, understand that it's going to take a process. So yes, reading, watching documentaries, having conversations, and not just one. It will take years. Like with anything that you learn, it takes a long time for it to be absorbed and for you to be able to put it into practice. So I just want to really thank everybody who joined me today on this panel discussion of being Black in this industry and talking about leadership perspective, intersectionality, as well as body image and the various issues that we spoke about today. So thank you very much again, Renee Mark, Stephen Trinidad, and Connie Martin for joining me today. And I'm going to put all of their contact information if you want to follow them on social media or attend virtual classes. And eventually when we get out of this pandemic, in-person classes, then you'll be able to connect with them and have more information on that respect. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, we'll see you again. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you so
thanks,
much.
Bye.
Have a blessed day.